sorry. I ain't sorry, America. It's time to get candid with Candice Wiggins.
The following is an exclusive presentation of the Ultimate Hoops Podcast Network.
So, today, I am so excited. I'll be conducting the very first interview with Candid with Candice Wiggins, and very, very special guest today that we'll be having in. You know, him and I, we never went to school together, but I have been such a huge fan of his forever, for eternity, and I am talking about the one and only Josh Childress, a.k.a. the ubiquitous man. And I have to say, this is just going to be such an honor. I've never, seen anyone with his humility, and he's ubiquitous in his own words. So I'm really excited to kind of get more into his mind and his insight and his life, and I hope that you are too. Josh Childress is on Candid with Candice Wiggins. Josh, what's up? Thank you so much for joining me, and welcome to my show.
Thanks for having me, Candice. I appreciate it. Looking forward to being candid.
All right. Well, Josh, we never went to school together, but I just have to tell you, I've been such a huge fan of yours throughout your entire career, stemming all the way back to your high school days. And I don't even know if you know that, but I've been following you for a pretty long time, and you were kind of hood famous in a way. And, we both grew up in Southern California, but LA is a lot different from San Diego. So I really just want to start with you telling us a little bit about your background. So the people want to know who Josh Childress is. I know I do. And by your own definition, you're ubiquitous, right? And that's like my favorite. By the way, that's one of my favorite words in the dictionary. So you are the ubiquitous man. So where did you originally grow up? Where did you originally grow up? And can you just mention anything significant about your AAU circle?
Yeah, so I grew up originally in Compton,
Okay.
California.
Wow.
I grew up near Centennial High School, which has now been made famous for being Kendrick Lamar's high school.
Wow.
Yeah, I spent my childhood there. All my friends, family, everything was based around there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting growing up in the inner city and
mm-hmm.
Using basketball as a tool to see different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So back then for me, making a trek to Orange County, was big, and was cool, and I was able to see different sides of life and different people and all that stuff. That's obviously through basketball, through the AAU circuit. But grew up there, spent my childhood there, then ended up going to high school in Lakewood. At Mayfair High,
mm-hmm.
and that's when I really kind of stepped onto the AAU scene.
Yep.
A bit more, and we had a pretty good team, Southern Cal All Stars. We had
SCA. Thank you.
Yeah, SCA. So we had we had a pretty good squad. The older side of our team was like Tayshaun Prince, Baron Davis.
Dang.
And a bunch of other guys, and then my class was myself, Tyson Chandler, a guy named Cedric Bozeman, Jamal Sampson, and I think our high school team ended up, all of us either were in the NBA or starting on our college team our freshman year. So we had that's a pretty quality squad there. But yeah, that's where I'm from. That's kind of where I was raised, and that's a little bit of my background.
That is incredible. That is incredible, Josh. That is so humbling. It must be, just to name all those legends. But okay, so I know a lot of kids you had a very complex background, and so I know a lot of people out there like you, kids out there like you were influenced and pressured into doing, getting involved into negative things and activities. I just want to know, how did you specifically overcome those things to get to where you are? And, I'm also talking about things like jealousy and those type of things that a lot of guys in the limelight, like yourself and all those guys you mentioned, deal with. How did you, not be influenced by those things?
Right. So the biggest thing for me that kept me out of those circles were my older brothers.
Mm.
Having a strong family structure, family support system, and really utilizing that to my advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that that's not the case for a lot of kids. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate reality that we live in. But they basically place incentives on me doing well in school and doing well in the classroom, and so those incentives, drove me to try and exceed their expectations. And that's really how it all happened. I mean, from a safety perspective and not getting involved in, the gang life and all that, that was primarily due to them as well. Having grown up in the environment, they knew, most of those guys that were the influencers in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so they just left me alone, and I was the kid that was going to play basketball. And so I was very blessed in that regard.
Yeah.
But, it's a tricky life. I know, there was a ton of guys that were super talented, much more talented than I was,
mm-hmm.
Who just made a wrong turn,
right.
And ended up, in jail or
mm-hmm.
getting shot or what have you. I know you've experienced that, down in San Diego as well, and
mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate, but it's just the reality that we live in. And my goal now is to get to a point where I can go back into the community, and help as many of those kids who don't have the family structure and support system as possible.
Definitely. You know what? We're going to get back to that. We're going to really talk about that in a little bit, in a little while, just talking about family and just what you are doing to give back. Because I know that you really take that personally, that responsibility, and I really admire you for that. So we're going to get back to that in a second. But I just want to go back into, I want to know about now your transition from Mayfair to Stanford. Can you just really just talk a little bit about that? Because I'm sure that was a lot, like two different worlds, huh?
Well, it was definitely a big transition for me.
Yeah.
And it was more so a transition culturally, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But just dealing with different types of people. I had only dealt with people, outside of, my culture
mm-hmm.
on a basketball level.
Right.
And so, then, being in groups of people that I had no idea who they were, what they were
mm-hmm.
from, what their parents did.
Right.
And so I think in a way that was a positive for me because I treated everybody the same.
Mm-hmm.
But just like I do,
yep.
you were sitting in class next to the CEO of Yahoo's,
yep.
Niece or daughter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a really cool thing to be able to do that. But at the same time, it was a culture shock. I walked around in my 5XL tall, white tees and Rockaware and Sean John clothes.
Right, and you stood out. I mean, you were just right away, like a freshman. I kind of feel you in that because right away, it's like everyone's just like, they know who you are too. So,
right,
yeah,
right. And that's all I knew, but I learned, quickly just, about my surroundings. And, I was fortunate that I had some pretty cool upperclassmen that,
mm-hmm.
kind of showed me the ropes.
Yep.
Julius Barnes and Justin Davis and Tunde Shabomahim and, guys like that
mm-hmm.
helped me navigate the scene up at Stanford. So it was awesome for me to be able to go through that and learn, and mold and shape myself into who I am now.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about that because, I'm going to go jump to your junior year because I just remember that so much. I was a senior in high school and I was following you guys that season and it was just incredible. You could just see the chemistry and everything. Like it felt like everybody was a part of it. And I just kind of want you to, talk about that season. And of course I'm talking about, when you guys went undefeated, that streak. The shot that Nick shot, the game-winning shot against Arizona was probably my favorite moment. And and I just, can you just talk about that season and what it meant to you and all the things that you learned, maybe something significant. But I really want you to think about, was it kind of like a situation with the Golden State Warriors a little bit, where because you guys didn't make it as far in the NCAA tournament and the way it ended, did that overshadow the actual season, or was it completely different? And just kind of like use that as, a comparison, if you will.
Right. So that season for me was, probably one of the best years I've ever been, played basketball wise. Like, it's so much fun. I mean, as you mentioned, the teamwork, all that stuff was just on point.
Yeah.
It was like a dream season for me in that regard. But that season, actually, that was I had a lot of adversity to go through during that year, because I had come off a solid sophomore season individually, and was expected to do some good things, and I missed the entire preseason. And so I spent that entire preseason with a broken foot.
I remember that, actually.
Sitting on the sidelines, going through, tons of different scenarios in my mind, but, also being 100% committed to my team.
Right.
And I think that only added to our camaraderie and our chemistry. So when I came back, I fit right into it. But, we had a great run. We won some close games that, people thought we wouldn't.
Yeah, a whole lot.
We beat some really good teams. Yeah. That Arizona game obviously is a instant classic. Tiger Woods on the sideline, going crazy. And those sorts of games. That's, as a kid growing up in the city, being on that stage, you got Dick Vitale on the TV screaming your name and all that stuff. That's the type of stuff that you live for,
Yes.
And I look back fondly on that year, but it was definitely a ton of pressure, getting towards the end of the year. That undefeated, tag that we just carried. And we ended up losing a last Pac-10 game to Washington up there. And it was heartbreaking, but we still had high expectations for the tournament. And we get to the tournament and then lose to Alabama in the second round, and it was super frustrating. And I think that all of us wish that we could go back to that time and replay that game and do things differently. But that's sports, and there are ups and downs. There's heartbreaks. There's exciting times, and I don't think any of us would trade that season for anything that we've experienced since. But I definitely enjoyed being on campus during that time, and the farm, Maples was rocking.
Yeah,
sure.
It was still bouncing too, man. I'm so jealous. You got to. They changed the court, man. When I got there, so I didn't get to have that. But you know what, Josh? I always say this. That it's always about the journey and not the destination. And I think that couldn't be more true with your team. I mean, the journey that you guys went through. It is great. It was greater than any destination point. And you really taught that lesson that season with how we all remember how we felt supporting you guys and your brotherhood. So I think you're absolutely right, and it's good that you have that feeling about it, because you absolutely should. You guys were amazing. Yeah. So okay, so let's move on to your transition to the NBA. And you left school early and you entered the draft in 2004. And I just want to know, just kind of, and we'll get back to just your decision to come back to school, which we have a lot in common with a lot of the things that we've been through in our lives. So I really want to just kind of go on those parallels later on. But right now, I just want to ask you, just I can imagine how hard it was, especially after the season you guys had and probably the unfinished business you felt like you were carrying, and a lot of pressure from both sides, people just pulling you. And I remember even me thinking when I was in high school, like, what is he going to do? Is Josh going to stay? Is he going to go? I was so involved in your decision too. And I just feel like, I want to know, like, what was your thought process? And I imagine your decision to leave early was a lot different than most guys who leave early. And I just want to know kind of what was your thought process, and just looking back, how do you feel about it? Anything, reflections that you have?
Right. So coming out, obviously, as you mentioned, I had that unfinished business, kind of sitting in the back of my mind, and I came out testing the waters, It wasn't a, I'm 100% sure gonna enter the draft.
Mm-hmm.
It was a decision based on, just some feedback that I had gotten from different agents and different GMs and all that stuff. So I went through the entire process. Actually, this is kind of going back to that support system thing. My older brother basically pulled money out of his savings to fund me doing all that so that I could go back to school if need be.
Wow.
And so, that right there is, obviously speaks a testament to just the level of support that I had.
Yeah.
We went through the process. I worked out for about 8 or 9 teams, and I felt pretty comfortable with, the draft range that I was told. It was difficult because I had grown, to really become brothers with my teammates, and leaving them, felt weird in a sense, but, they were very supportive and were very happy for me. But it's not easy, and leaving a school like that after a season like that, was difficult. But ironically, our head coach, Mike Montgomery, left that same year too.
Yeah,
so, he kind of took some of the pressure off of me,
definitely,
from the group.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so now, okay, let's go international. I have to say this because we both played together in Athens. Well, not together, but we both played in Athens.
Yeah.
Remember for the 2009, 2010 season, and you were like the biggest thing happening there. You were like bigger than LeBron, balling bigger than LeBron, bigger than Kobe. No. My favorite part was, and people need to understand this. This was crazy. Like I witnessed this. People were going to the stores buying Josh Childress afros. Do you remember that? And they were like, I mean, you just took over this entire country, and it was just incredible. I came to one of the games. I couldn't believe it. Like it was almost one of those things where I just felt so privileged to see this, and it was just like amazing. And I think you might have even been more loved there than even in America because the Greek, as you know, the Greek people are so passionate. And just they are just it's crazy with Panathinaikos and Olympiakos, like that rivalry is insane. And so I just I'm obsessed personally with Greek culture, and I love it, and I think I am Greek. And so I'm just curious to know, like, what was your favorite part about living and playing in Greece? It could be on the court, an experience you had off the court. What was your favorite parts of the city? And just kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, it was an awesome experience living there. And, that decision for me was cool on a few different levels. Number one, I was able to go and play in Europe, play all around Europe, kind of during, some of the peak years of my career. And that was great, and obviously there was a bunch of headlines made on me leaving the NBA to go do that. But, the Greek people were incredibly welcoming, incredibly passionate, incredibly giving. I mean, they, I can't tell you how many free meals and, people were inviting me into their homes and things like that because they truly love and support their teams. They live and die by their team.
Yes.
I mean, it's one of those lifelong memories, experiences, whatever you want to call it, that I'll cherish because I was able to experience that in ways that other athletes have never been able to.
Right.
And that was just awesome for me. And Olympiakos fans are probably some of the most passionate fans in the world. Every country that I've been to since, I'll see Olympiakos fans. And I even had a group of them at my games in Australia.
Dang,
cheering for me,
worldwide.
And it's that sort of thing. They just, they're supportive of their family, and they felt like I was a part of their family. So, I was definitely, I definitely enjoyed that. And in terms of, just Greek culture, I think the food was the best.
Oh yeah.
That food was unreal. And, just their take on life.
Yeah.
The history within the country, and the relationships that I made there with, teammates,
Yeah.
fans, trainers, what have you, things
Yeah.
that I really cherish.
Yeah, I loved like how they had the name days and everything was like, a celebration
Yeah.
of life. And no matter what they're going through, like circumstantially with financially and all that stuff, it's like they're so rich in spirit. And the word that I think about when I think of Greece is just like hospitality. They're the rulers of that, and they just
Right.
I advise everyone take a trip to Greece one day in your life, and
Right.
you'll just have the greatest time. So yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, so this last segment here, Josh, I just want to really kind of go through, like I mentioned earlier, I was realizing how many parallels our lives have, and just a lot of experiences we've shared that are similar. That I would love to hear, your thoughts on it, and I'm just gonna, just kind of go through a couple of things, and like I said, I would love to hear what you think. But the first thing I want to talk about is just you getting drafted to the NBA, and I got drafted to the WNBA, and then making the decision to go and finish your education and go back to school, which is something that I did in 2010. I went back after I tore my Achilles. I went back to Stanford and I finished. And I just kind of want you to just speak briefly, if you want, about just your decision, because we know that sports isn't forever. And we both made a decision to attend Stanford for a purpose and a reason. And I would just be great to hear, like, how I know that's a very important achievement that you have, and you're very proud of it. And I just want you to speak on going back to school.
Right. So, just as you mentioned, similar pillow, I had gotten injured and gotten released from the Pelicans. So I was coming off sports hernia surgery, and basically told my agent, "Hey, I'm going to take this downtime to go back to school." And I had taken classes, a class or two every summer, since I had left, just to try and stay on pace. But I just felt like it was a perfect time, and the perfect opportunity to go back and finish. One of the things that I promised my mom when I left school was that I would finish. But as you mentioned, it's your one knee injury, one broken ankle or ACL or whatever away from being done as a professional athlete. And a lot of people say that Stanford degree is priceless, and I would agree with them. Not only from the prestige of the university, but also just the types of people that you're able to connect with.
Yes.
Having gotten that degree, and so I just felt like it was the right time to do it. And I was able to train up there at the facilities, and rekindle some relationships with people that I hadn't seen in years. And, I really try to build something up there, because it really is a special place. It's one of those places that any family or anybody that I know that have been there, rant and rave about just the beauty of the place, and how peaceful it is, how it makes them feel being there.
Yeah.
And it is true. And so I wanted to go back and do that, and I also wanted to just reconnect with the basketball program. We have a mentorship program through the basketball team that we were doing. So I was able to spend some time with my mentee was Anthony Brown.
Oh, nice.
But Anthony and Chase and Randall and Dwight Powell and Josh Childress.
Oh, wow.
Those guys.
Yeah, look at that.
It was cool to be able to do that, and I hope to continue that with the new coaching staff as well.
Right. Well, let's keep going with that. Speaking of injuries, I want to, because that's kind of what triggered both of us to go back to school. So, I've had 8 surgeries that I've had throughout my career, and I feel like, I don't know how many you've had or all the injuries that you've had in your history, but for me, I really learned how much of the mental aspect of it is important with injuries. But I'm curious to know, like, what you think about bouncing back from injuries, and maybe anything you can give information, like, about, what you think is the biggest thing from bouncing back from injuries, because you still have a career now, and you've been able to persevere. So what is your, idea?
And I've suffered a ton of injuries the past 2 years, which, has been really tough on me. I tore my pec, I broke both hands, you name it, it's happened. But at the end of the day, it's about staying positive. You know, and I generally just chalk it up to, you know, it comes with sports. You know, you train as hard as you possibly can and get ready for a season. You know, you want to be your best you, and things happen, you know, and so it's not so much what has happened to you, but, you know, how you'll be able to bounce back from those, how effectively, how quickly, you know, how you'll be able to impact your team and those around you while you're out, you know, are important as well. And you know, it's a mental side of sports that, you know, casual fans may not understand, you know, just the stress and anxiety and depression and all those things that come along with like being injured, you know,
Right.
you're away from what you love to do, forced to be away from what you love to do. And, you know, I mean, it's just about staying positive, you know, understanding that it's temporary, and, you know, it's not your destination. It's just a part of the journey.
Yep. Josh, can you mention, because I think this is where I'm really, like, I'm with you 100%. And I want you to mention, like, the importance of family. Because I know for me, when I was going through everything, I really started to understand how my family is my foundation. And I know, I'm sure I know for a fact that you've gone through that similar experience. So just tell me about the importance and what family means to you and just what they, you know, throughout your entire career, but specifically in the hardest parts.
Right. Yes. I mean, family is everything, you know, for me. And, you know, family, you know, as my family specifically has been extremely supportive. You know, they're honest, you know, and that's sometimes good and bad. You know, you don't want to hear certain things, but, you know, they keep you grounded, you know, but they also uplift you when you need to be uplifted. And they just help me get through the tough times and, you know, keep my head straight when the times are great, you know, and I think that's, you know, you can't put a price tag on that. I mean, it's just, it's an amazing feeling knowing that you have a group of people that, you know, support you no matter what, and, you know, will be there for you and, you know, give you strength when you need it. And you know, I'm very thankful and blessed to have that family support structure that I have. And, you know, they definitely helped me, you know, through my injury processes, you know, dealing with that stuff and you know, keeping me lighthearted and, you know, laughing and joking and those sorts of things, you know, I cherish and I value. And like you mentioned, you know, family is important to you as well, and I'm sure you have had that same situation happen before, you know, where you have a really bleak outlook on what's next, and you know, they put things in perspective for you. So, you know, I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, no, and it's something, sometimes, you know, God has it where you go through things sometimes and you don't really understand the importance of it until you're in that valley. So I know that you understand that, and a lot of times it's, you know, I'm so fortunate that I have such a full and complete understanding of that. So it's really good. Okay, so now let's just talk about, I know you'd mentioned, you know, where you grew up and just how you're very dedicated, and one of the things that you take pride in is going back to the community and expressing to them, you know, just being a role model for those. I want you to talk about like your foundation and it's and just what you want your legacy to be and what you've learned in your career and how you are planning on giving back, because I think it's just, Josh, your story is so profound, and it is such a wonderful blueprint for people who maybe feel like they don't know what the next chapter is. You've been a light for so many people, and I just am really curious as to, you know, what you feel like personally, what your legacy is and what you're dedicated to, and just in your own words.
I appreciate those kind of words. That really means a lot. And for me, the next step is, you know, to figure out a way to be impactful in the community. And I think, you know, in the past I've done, you know, things from a basketball perspective, you know, which is great, you know, from a sports perspective, you know, but there's so much more to life than sports. And, you know, one of the reasons why I felt the need to start, you know, a foundation and try to do more work within the community was, I was hosting a free camp in Compton, and, you know, we have the Q&A session, and the kids are saying, I'm asking the kids, like, what do you want to be when you get older? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? And 95% of them said, I want to be, a pro athlete. I want to be a rapper. I want to be, something in the entertainment business.
Mm-hmm.
And, that just made me a little bit frustrated.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to life, and there's so many more successful careers that some of these kids could attain, if they knew how and if they felt like they were realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But the people that they see on TV are athletes, the rappers, the musicians, and that sort. So that's all they see. That's all they aspire to be. And that kind of shifted my mentality a bit to try and focus on, wanting to create other programs within the inner city. So, I've been in talks with the mayor of Compton to try and put together like a financial literacy program, in the city of Compton, and, helping kids understand, taxes, budgeting, how to start a business, figuring out what you're interested in, things of that nature, that you don't learn in school, but that are lifelong, skills that you need, and we're also in talks about trying to do some affordable housing in the city, and do some nice things that allow the residents to feel good about where they live, and also bring nice things to the city. There's a few other things that we would love to do, sports academies and such, but it's just a matter of figuring out the best way to do those, and and make sure that they're long lasting, and that they're effective, and not just here today, gone tomorrow sorts of programs. So that's my goal, and I'm going to work bit by bit to try and attain those things, and hope that I can make an impact on the city of Compton, and leave a legacy of just being someone who wants to help that next Josh Childress or that next Candice Wiggins achieve their goals in whatever field they choose.
God bless you, Josh Childress. That is amazing. Are you one of the 99% of basketball players who never played professional basketball? Are you tired of trying to live your hoop dreams in the same old rec basketball leagues? At Ultimate Hoops, we believe that all basketball players should be treated like a professional. And with Ultimate Hoops League, we have completely revolutionized recreational basketball. With the Ultimate Hoops League, you'll get full online stats for every game, including box scores, videos, photos, power rankings, and your own personal profile that tracks your stats for your entire career. And you can compare your stats with the thousands of other Ultimate Hoops players across the US and Canada. Most Ultimate Hoops leagues cost under $100 a season, which includes 8 regular season games played on Lifetime Fitness's professional quality basketball courts. No matter what your skill level is, the Ultimate Hoops League is the place to take your talents to. Join the largest recreational basketball league in America, the Ultimate Hoops League, by going to uhlife.com to get started. A new season starts in July, so go to uhlife.com now and start getting treated like a professional today. Now I want to ask you, let's move towards the guys. Just 2 more questions left. So now let's talk about these guys. The NBA draft was just a little while ago, and these guys they're new. These professional athletes, the NFL, NBA, they're all getting drafted now. I just have one question. In when you are drafted, you're 20 years old. I mean, your circumstances are crazy. 18 to 21 years old, these kids are. There's no way that you can understand, what's going on in your life. It just completely changes. It's so drastic. So my question to you, Josh, looking back in retrospect, like who do you trust, and how do you know who to trust when it comes to that? Like that's like the $1 million question, like.
Right. the most difficult question you could probably ask anybody. That
But
situation.
can you speak on it at all?
Yeah. You know, my answer to that question, would be that you trust those that have been with you from day one.
Okay.
Now the issue with that most of the time is those individuals, haven't probably been educated in managing finances or, managing a business or what have you. And so you run into situations where, those individuals, family members or friends or whatever, end up damaging the relationships because, they lost you money or, you've heard the stories.
Yeah.
And I think that, it really comes down to, trusting your gut, and trusting, not feeling beholden to individuals based on, the amount of time that they've been around you.
Okay.
But putting people around you who have been there, who have done it. I know I'm going into a bunch of different tangents, but myself and Al Harrington, who played 16 or 17 years in the NBA, we've had discussions about, starting a company that acts as, advisors, mentors, what have you, to incoming draftees, and we feel that we can gain that trust because, we don't want anything from these guys.
Right.
We just want to make sure that, they're able to build themselves, build their brands, and walk away, from athletics, having made a nice chunk of change and able to, start phase 2 or 3 of their lives comfortably. And that, have happened, I'm sure it happens, on the female side of sports as well. As you guys go over to, play in the WNBA, you go over to Europe or China or whatever, make good money, and then who do you trust with that? How,
Right.
When you come home, what do you do? Where are you going? How do you handle that pressure? And so, yeah, I guess the biggest advice is trust your gut. But, secondly, try and get mentors that have been there before, and that can talk you through, the ins and outs, the pitfalls, what you should be paying your agent,
Right.
what should you be paying, a financial advisor, what deal looks good, what deal looks bad, those sorts of things.
Well, that definitely sounds like something that you definitely need to pursue, and I think that it's so great of you to think about that. And these guys are so fortunate to have you as a mentor. So you got to keep pursuing that because it's all about continuing to educate the next generation. And it's very crucial. Right. So that's really great of you. So okay, yeah, go ahead.
You interested in doing that? Maybe you could join the team.
Hey, of course, man. You better. Well, you know what? The women's is different. It's a totally different world, and that I played in the WNBA, and that W just separates so much, and it's So I would definitely love to be a part of that, and just in terms of getting women to understand, what their value is, because even though society might say otherwise, it's kind of just going off of everything that you've been saying. So definitely, Josh, thank you. I would love to be a part of the team.
Really
we need
cool.
to talk about
really
that.
Cool.
Let's talk about that, okay? So here's my last question for you, and this is the question that this is what I think I admire the most about you. This is probably where I feel the most connected with you, in terms of you always make decisions independent of the masses. You march to the beat of your own drum. You're the ubiquitous man. Jadena's the classic man, but Josh Childress is the ubiquitous man. Okay? So I just want you to kind of just talk about that. Talk about what is it about you that you just make decisions that are just completely your own, and how it's like it takes a lot of courage, bravery. Like, what is it that you think makes it where you're making these decisions, like your decision to go to Greece? It was just it's so refreshing to see this, and it was empowering for me in my journey watching you. Can you just talk about that? And
Yeah. So I would be lying if I said I do that by myself.
Okay.
A lot of that just it happens through prayer and like just being led.
Yep.
Led by the Father, and
yes.
That's generally what happens.
Okay.
going through a time, or I'm confused, or don't know what to do next, and I just try and listen, and kind of get out of my own way, get out, don't allow people's, other people's opinions to kind of bother me and what I'm trying to do, and just listen to my heart, and listen to my gut, hear things through prayer, and just make moves. And that's just kind of how I live my life.
Okay.
I've probably, done a few crazy things over the years because of that, but it's created so many, lifelong experiences and really cool situations for me. Really great relationships, friendships for me. And, I love life. I live it and I love it. That's how you're supposed to live. So
yes. Well, Josh, you continue to keep living like that, because I feel you 100%. I could say the very same thing, and it's really good to know, and very comforting to know that, that we have similar experiences when it comes to that, and that it's all led by a higher source that is greater than us. And I think that that is definitely a testament to your humility, and it comes from. And I'm just very honored to have been able to just have this conversation with you. And I thank you so much, Josh, for your time, and just going through your journey, and just thank you again for your time.
No problem. Anytime. Thanks for having me. I'm a phone call away, and I appreciate it. And I'll definitely keep you in mind if Al and I decide to start that company up.
Please do, Josh.
I think that you'll be extremely valuable, and you provide a ton of insight, not only for women, but also for men as well on just the journey of being a professional athlete. And you've obviously had an unbelievable career. Congrats on the retirement.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing everything that you have in store.
Thank you, Josh. Don't forget the Stanford Pledge of Allegiance. Nerd Nation under God, indivisible. Thank you, Josh.
Sure,
you're so awesome. I'm humbled right now, and just thank you again. Take care, okay?
All right. Thanks, Candice.
All right. Bye.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Candid with Candice Wiggins. Remember, you can subscribe to the Ultimate Hoops Podcast Network on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, and listen and download other podcasts like The Wild Card with Luke Hanlon, Recreation Nation with Reed Nelson, The Dream League Insider, and the Short Corner Podcast. Thanks to Ultimate Hoops and Lifetime Fitness, who made this all possible. If you want to learn more about Ultimate Hoops and all of our basketball products, go to uhlife.com. We'll be back next week with an all-new episode of Candid with Candice Wiggins.